Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Shoftim. That means judges. And in this week's Torah portion, we're going to see that God told Moses that he was going to raise up a prophet who would be like Moses. So my question today is, who would that prophet be? This week's Torah portion is in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 18 through 21, verse 9. The Haftarah is Isaiah 51:12 through 52:12. And the New Testament portion is John chapter 1, verse 19 through 27. So I'm just going to start right off by reading selected portions of the Torah portion. Starting in chapter 17, I'm going to start in chapter 16, because in this portion, God is talking about judges, priests, and kings, leaders of Israel. And it starts off in chapter 16, verse 18. You shall appoint for yourself judges, which is the Shoftim that we're talking about today, and officers in all your towns, which the Lord your God is giving you, according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not distort justice. You shall not be partial, and you shall not take a bribe. For a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. Justice and only justice you shall pursue, that you may live and possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you. How much does he talk about justice? Just in that one little portion. Going on into chapter 17, verse 1. You shall not sacrifice to the Lord your God an ox or a sheep which has a blemish or any defect, for that is a detestable thing to the Lord your God. God is saying he wants us to bring our very, very best. Moving on into chapter 17, verse 14. When you enter the land which the Lord your God gives you, and you possess it and live in it, and you will say, I will set a king over me, like all the nations who are around me. You shall surely set a king over you, whom the Lord your God chooses. One from among your countrymen you shall set as king over yourselves. You may not put a foreigner over yourselves who is not your countrymen. Moreover, he shall not multiply horses for himself, nor shall he cause the people to return to Egypt to multiply horses, since the Lord has said to you, you shall never again return that way. He shall not multiply wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away, nor shall he greatly increase silver and gold for himself. So here we see a warning from God against whoever would be the leader, that he would not set his heart on money, and he would not go after strange women or abundance of women. Of course, we know what happened to King Solomon, who started off well with the Lord, and how many things God did for Solomon, but it was his many wives that turned his heart away from God. In verse 18, it says, now it shall come about when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself a copy of this law on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priest. It shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God by carefully observing all the words of this law and these statutes, that his heart may not be lifted up above his countrymen, and that he may not turn aside from the commandment to the right or the left, so that he and his sons may continue long in his kingdom in the midst of Israel. And so here he's saying, whoever is king among you, he must actually write the word of the Lord, and then he must study it every day of his life. And we know God said that to Joshua too. He said, meditate on this word, study this word. We see it in the book of Psalms, where it says, Beli bit safanti, I have hidden your word in my heart, And that's what God desires from each one of us, that we would hide his word in his heart, that we might not sin against him, that we might know how to live and to prosper in him. In chapter 18 of Deuteronomy, verse 1, it says, the Levitical priests, the whole tribe of Levi, shall have no portion or inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the Lord's offerings by fire and his portion. They shall have no inheritance among their countrymen. The Lord is their inheritance, as he promised them. Going on to verse 5, it says, for the Lord your God has chosen him, meaning the tribe of Levi, and his sons from all your tribes to stand and serve in the name of the Lord forever. So here we see once again, the role of the priests was to stand and serve in the name of the Lord. I want to move down into chapter 18, verse 9. When you enter the land which the Lord your God gives you, you shall not learn to imitate the detestable things of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire, one who uses divination, one who practices witchcraft, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who casts a spell, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For whoever does these things is detestable to the Lord. And because of these detestable things, the Lord your God will drive them out before you. You shall be blameless before the Lord your God. For those nations which you shall dispossess, listen to those who practice witchcraft and to diviners. But as for you, the Lord your God has not allowed you to do so. God uses such strong words against witchcraft here. In verse 15, now this is what we're going to really focus on today, and it has to do with our question. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me. This is Moses talking, right? From among you, from your countrymen. You shall listen to him. And then in verse 18, it says, I will raise up a prophet from among their countrymen like you. And I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. I want to go to chapter 20, and I'll start in verse 1, and this is going to finish us up in the Torah portion today. When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them. For the Lord your God, who brought you up from the land of Egypt, is with you. When you are approaching the battle, the priest shall come near and speak to the people. He shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you are approaching the battle against your enemies today. Do not be faint-hearted. Do not be afraid or panic or tremble before them. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies and to save you. And now I want to move to the New Covenant portion. And I'm in chapter 1, and I want to start in verse 19, just to show you that during the time that Yeshua was on the earth, the people were actually expecting this prophet that Moses had prophesied about. They were waiting for him. So in John chapter 1, verse 19, this is the testimony of John. When the Jews sent to him priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, Who are you? Now we're talking here about John the Baptist. And he confessed, and he did not deny, but he confessed, I am not the Messiah. And they asked him, What then? Are you Elijah? And he said, I am not. Are you the prophet? Now, this is a direct reference to what we just read, this prophecy that there would be a prophet like Moses. These people are expecting him, and they say, Are you the prophet? And he answered, No. Then they said to him, Who are you? so that we may give an answer to those who sent us. What did you say about yourself? And he said, I am a voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as Isaiah the prophet said. So we know that John the Baptist came as a forerunner before the Messiah, Yeshua, and he was actually preparing the way for Yeshua. And the answer to the question, who was the prophet who would be like Moses? The answer is that prophet was Yeshua. And I'm just going to give you a few ways that Yeshua was like Moses. Both Moses and Yeshua, when they were babies, they were saved from evil kings. We know that Moses was saved from death, that Pharaoh had declared that all those male babies should die. And we also know that Herod had declared that all those male children in the area of Bethlehem, all those babies should die. God saved both of them from these evil kings. Both of them came out of Egypt. Now, you might think, when did Yeshua come out of Egypt? But it was exactly because when Herod was trying to kill him, Joseph and Miriam took him to Egypt until it was safe for him to come back to Israel. They both fasted for 40 days. They were both in the wilderness for 40 days. And both Moses and Yeshua taught the people God's word. And Yeshua especially expounded on the very, very heart of God and the things that meant the most to him. So as we go through this week, let's just delight in these very things that God has spoken to us. I bless you, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Shalom.